Have you told your friends that you see ghosts?
Oh, absolutely not.
Gina Rodriguez returns in Not Dead Yet.
I'm back, baby.
Who is that?
Oh, she's the obituary writer.
And Brad Garrett joins the brilliant ensemble cast.
Titan, Maverick, Titan of all Mavericks. These are all words used to describe me.
Not Dead Yet. Season premiere. Tonight, 8:30, 7:30 Central on ABC. And stream on Hulu.
It's the Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
Well, it's that time of the year. We've got kids going to awards nights, assemblies, all the end-of-year ceremonies, whether they're in primary school or high school, whether you're in a private school, a Catholic school, a Christian school, a public school. This is the time of the year where schools reflect and reward what's gone well during the year. Kylie, we have sat through so many of these with our 6 kids over the years, and it's kind of natural when you see all of the other kids walking up on a stage to get their merit awards and their badges, or to be awarded the prefect or school captain or house captain labels, to feel a little bit disappointed when your kids are sitting there at the front of the hall and they're not being called up to the stage. And it's disappointing not just for us as parents, but it's also disappointing for the kids. Like, you can see it on their faces. They're craving the recognition that their peers or some of their peers are getting, and they're not getting it. Today, I want to talk about this particular issue.
I remember when our eldest children were young, we had a lot of awards back in those early days. They were recognised for lots of different things. And I won't lie, it was really nice.
Feels nice.
To see my kid up there.
Feels nice.
And as more kids came along, less awards became apparent. And I wonder whether those awards are more about the parents' participation in their children's lives or whether it is actually about the kids. But regardless, I think as our ideas around education and awards and all of that has changed over the years, it's less of a pinch point for me. I kind of find those award nights quite hollow in lots of ways because there is such a limited scope to what we are celebrating in our children. And academics is such a small, teeny tiny part of who our children are. And there's only so many awards that go out. So when I look at an awards night, often we attend and there'll be maybe 2, 3, 4 kids who just seem to be up getting every award. And as I've sat there and I've looked at it, it's occurred to me that out of a school of 2,000 kids, you're trying to tell me that 4 or 5 kids are the only kids working really hard. It just doesn't sit with me.
Well, I want to run through a couple of things that kind of get under my skin around these awards ceremonies, and I'm going to be pretty blunt about it and use research science to support what I'm saying. But then I think we also have to acknowledge that the system is what it is. It's not going to change, in most schools, most places. And so therefore we need as parents to be equipped to know how to help our children to handle the disappointment that they experience when they don't receive an award, especially if they thought that they might have been in with a shot. And by the same token, how we can deal with our own disappointment when we thought our kids might have been within a shot and they didn't get it. And we're kind of going, let's smile while everyone else and clap for everyone else's kids and nothing happens. So I've got some problems with rewards generally. And this actually happened for us just recently. I haven't told you this or not, so this is a scoop on air. We were nominated for the second year in a row to win the Best Parenting Podcast in Australia award at the recent Australian Podcast Awards, and for the second year in a row, we were one of the top finalists, but we missed out on the gong and went to somebody else. And part of me is just going, why? Like, we do a really great podcast and people really like the podcast and we get lots and lots of downloads and we get so much great feedback. And it's about that. This is the problem with rewards. It shifted me when I found out that we were a finalist again and didn't make it again, shifted me away from the focus of what I'm really trying to achieve with this podcast. And it has nothing to do with winning an award. The award is so... I mean, we don't sit here and think, oh, how can we win an award?
Well, as you're telling me this, you told me that we'd be nominated and it kind of went in one ear and out the other because it doesn't really matter. It's not going to change the way we do things.
Yeah.
So I haven't been waiting with bated breath to find out whether or not we actually made it through or not.
Let's talk about some of the problems with rewards. Number one, I'm actually going to make the argument that rewards are a punishment in and of themselves to the other 99%. So rewards are mutually exclusive. Not everybody can get one. And of course, we have a culture where if everybody does get a participation trophy, if everybody does get a prize, everyone really gets upset about that. It's like, no, we can only reward excellence. We can't reward mediocrity. And so because awards by their very nature are exclusive, what happens is that they start to feel more like a punishment for everybody else. They really appeal to the top 1% or the top 2% or whatever it might be. Like you said, you've got a school of hundreds or even thousands of kids, and it's the same 10 kids across the school that are scooping up all of the awards and winning everything. There are so many solid performers that are overlooked. And I think this has a really significant impact on motivation for both those who are the high achievers, but also those who are not getting the awards. It's very, very rare that a student goes, I didn't get the award, but next year I'm going to get it. I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to make sure that it's me next year. Granted, some do, but the vast majority don't. The vast majority feel dispirited because they can't compete with the cool kids or the smart kids or the sporty kids or the humanitarian award kids who just seem to know how to inject themselves into the community and do good things.
Well, and not only that, they actually know what effort they've put in themselves better than anyone else does. Teachers are amazing, are absolutely amazing, hands down, doing such a good job, but their perspective is different.
And they can't possibly be expected to know everything.
That's exactly right.
Or to be able to measure effectively the degree of difficulty required for a student to get to a certain level. So this brings me to the two other main points that I wanted to make. Okay, so number one, there's the impact on relationships. So the kids who aren't getting the awards, they often, not always, but often will look at the kids who are getting the awards, and there can be a little bit of tall poppy syndrome, a little bit of sour gripes, whatever it is. They're sort of looking at the kids and going, oh, they're just so much better. And relationships can feel uncomfortable, especially when competitiveness is brought into it, but also feeling judged by teachers, whether we want it to happen or not. A side effect can be that kids can feel like the teacher doesn't get them, and the relationships can really be harmed. Furthermore, relationships can be harmed at home when parents are saying, but you just need to work harder. And then parents start to push the kids and the kids start to rebel. So rewards and awards can, and I'm not saying this happens universally, but they can really backfire in relationships. But picking up even more on the theme that we've kind of, I guess, has threaded everything that you and I both said, ultimately rewards and awards are ignoring reasons. So why is it that there are a handful of kids or a handful of families that pick up all of the awards at the end of the year? It could be because they're just naturally talented. Some families just have sporting genes or maths brains or academic orientations. Some families, there is a very clear relationship between income, having resources and time, and children doing well at school. We know from NAPLAN tests that you can tell which schools are going to do well and which schools aren't going to do well on NAPLAN, not by the quality of the teachers, but by the postcode the school is in. There's simply a relationship between income and education standards. It exists. It's undeniable. It's really not very politically correct to say it, but it's the reality. And so all the kids that are getting the awards, especially when we're seeing the same families represented, quite often, and again, not always, but quite often, this is a reflection of socioeconomic status, finances, resources, much more than it's a reflection of children's natural ability or what's happening in the education process. Furthermore, other reasons that might be overlooked are we might be rewarding tiger parenting.
Well, I was about to say there's enough anecdotal evidence over the years of children who've achieved greatness, but at the cost of their relationships with their parents, because there was never a choice that they wouldn't succeed.
Yeah, so these rewards and awards might actually just be reinforcing perfectionism on the part of either the parents or the students or both. And so they're my concerns with rewards. There's some of my concerns. There are more, but in this podcast, we don't have time to go through all of them. Nevertheless, awards nights are going to continue in spite of Dr. Justin Coulson's concerns about them and preference for us to not do them.
So my question is then, is it okay to acknowledge excellence?
I love this question. And the answer is, yeah, but the key word is acknowledge. Okay. And there's also a developmental reality to this. So when children are younger, they do a lot less well around the idea of awards and rewards. And it really can affect them. It can affect their identity. It really affect the way they see themselves as either being a loser or being a smart kid or being a sporty kid or being an unco kid, or like kids put these names and way worse things than what I've just said on themselves when they either do or don't get the awards. So from a developmental perspective, once kids get into their mid-teens, they're much more neurologically and emotionally ready to understand how this stuff works. But bringing this into earlier childhood, I'm saying sort of 11 or 12 and under, particularly primary school, there's just no place for it. I don't think that it should be there at all. Second thing, you've said, is it okay to acknowledge excellence? There's a difference between acknowledging excellence and rewarding excellence. And to me, the word acknowledge is critical here. Is it okay to acknowledge excellence? Absolutely it is. It's okay to celebrate and be delighted about it. What's even better, though, is to get the kids to acknowledge it themselves so that they can see how they're progressing and learning. Once we start bringing rewards in, we've moved from not just acknowledging excellence, but lifting it up and creating a sense of exclusivity around it. And if we can't get everybody else to that same level, I think we have a problem. This is why I'm a big fan of competency-based education, because what we're saying is we're not so interested in people being absolutely excellent right now. We just want everybody to know how to do this stuff and to be able to enjoy it, whether it's learning, reading, maths, sports. Let's just go and enjoy the process.
So I guess the question is, if we recognise that the system's not going to change, we're going to have, on a yearly basis,
Yeah.
the vast majority of kids disappointed because they're either not recognised or they feel harshly done by because they've worked really, really hard and should be standing up there and being recognised and are not. So as parents, how do we navigate their disappointment and probably sometimes ours?
So before I share, I've got 5 things and I'm going to whiz through 5 things in like 2 minutes. But before I do that, what have you specifically done with our kids when perhaps I haven't been there because I've been giving a talk somewhere, or they've come to you and they've been disappointed themselves?
So I'm going to be completely honest. I actually don't think that we've had a huge amount of disappointment in our home in relation to this. And I think it's primarily because we have not put the emphasis on awards and rewards. What I feel we've been able to do is foster a love of learning in our home and encouragement of our kids working to their level of capacity in any moment. There's an acknowledgement that from week to week, month to month, our capacity changes based on whatever's happening within our lives.
And I guess they've heard me talk for so many years about how education does matter, but how you perform at school isn't the most important thing in your life.
So what I've loved is even when the kids haven't done as well as they would have hoped or wanted to, they've been able to celebrate the fact that in spite of the challenges they've been experiencing in their lives, that they recognise that they've done a great job for them for that moment in time.
Yeah, we do talk to them about this stuff a lot. 5 things in 2 minutes or less that I think we can do if our children are disappointed or if we're disappointed. Number 1, let's make sure that we act consistent with what our values are, or at least what we profess our values to be. What I mean by that is, so one of my favourite studies to cite was a Harvard study done a handful of years ago where researchers asked kids, do your parents care more about your grades or more about your character? And the kids said grades. They asked the parents, do you care more about your kids' grades or more about your kids' character? And the parents said character. There's a mix-up in the messaging here. Parents are saying, I care about your character. I care about who you are. I care about who you're developing into. But the kids are only getting the message, you care about my performance at school.
And I guess that's where the conversations we have in our home are so important.
Yeah.
The conversations we have with our kids are all about character.
Yeah. Then the more we emphasize grades, the more we emphasize academic outcomes, sporting outcomes, whatever it is, the more we give our children the message that that's what matters. Where our conversations are focused is where our children are going to think that our values lie. Second thing, I think that it's important to teach your kids to sit with disappointment. That's life. Sometimes life doesn't work out well. Sometimes you just can't win everything. Sometimes you don't get to be up on stage getting the applause. In fact, sometimes you never get to be the person who does that. And the conversation then is, so what does that say about you?
I think it's even more than that. I think it's, why are you doing it? If the only reason our children are motivated to do something is because they're going to get an award at the other end, then we've actually done them a disservice.
Great.
Because the idea that the learning in and of itself is the reward. We learn, we grow, we improve, we develop. That's the reward. And yet, as a society, we've actually taken that joy out of learning and made it all about a piece of paper.
The third thing that I would mention is I'd just have a chat with kids about talents. We've all got them. What are we going to do with them? You mentioned this earlier, Kylie. Schools recognise a very, very, very limited array of talents. In fact, array is the wrong word because there are so few that are recognised. It's like when you watch Australia's Got Talent and everyone gets up and sings. Like, there's a whole lot more talents out there than being able to sing. There's the ability to appreciate art. There's the ability to create art. There's the ability to design. There's the ability to speak. There's the ability to feel and comfort and lead. And like, the list is just as long as you want it to be. There's all of these unique talents. School assemblies recognise a handful of them, and they're not even the most important ones. And so talking to your kids about that and highlighting, what talents do you have, can be tremendously powerful.
What's number 4?
Talk about status and recognition. What does it mean to get the status and recognition? Do you want the award or do you just want to be noticed? Do you want to be a maths brain? Do you want to be a sports star? Or do you just want people to say nice things about you? Because once we start to get into that, we start again to get into motivations. Why do you feel sad? You feel sad because you didn't get the recognition, or you feel sad because you worked really hard and you feel like you should have, but nobody noticed. We start to get into the nitty-gritty of this. And ultimately, I think if we can help our kids to recognize that recognition like this is so arbitrary and it's so much about luck and how things play out, what matters is who we're becoming, not how we're being recognized for it.
Next year, no one's going to be asking
about
the award they got last year. And in 5 years' time, it's not even going to be a consideration, regardless of how many awards you get. When you're sitting in that office for an interview, you're not going to be sharing with them that you won the Excellence Award for biology in grade 10. Like, it doesn't matter.
You've stolen my fifth and final idea. And by the way, I said 2 minutes, but you keep on sharing so many interruptions, so many great things that we've gone more than 2 minutes. But I want to share this last one really quickly and emphasize take the long view, which is just what you've said. That's my fifth and final one. Nobody that I know has on their Twitter profile, I was the grade 3 swimming champion, or I was the grade 7 ducks, or anything like that. Like, the long-term view, none of this stuff matters. It really doesn't. Once you get out of school, nobody's asking the question, nobody's waving the flag, nobody's looking at the trophy that they got in second class and saying, oh, look at how good I was as a runner in second grade. Here's my little green ribbon or my little blue ribbon for having won that race. We just don't do that, because as we get older and we have more perspective, we realize how limited this whole sphere of education is in terms of living a full and whole life. So we hope these 5 ideas have been helpful in navigating the end-of-year assemblies and the attendant disappointment that's all but guaranteed for so many families. Thanks so much for listening. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rowan from Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer. If you'd like more info about making your family happier, we'd love for you to join us at our Facebook page, Dr. Justin Coulson's Happy Families, or at happyfamilies.com.au.